we've established cameras that are fan-facing to capture that emotionful moment of something happening in the game, that dunk, that score, and then sending a fan their picture of them and their guests in that moment. That kind of interactivity is things that we've engaged in the past that have been successful.
Hello, welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmidt, also known as Mr. IoT, and I am Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist. Today on my show we have Matt Lawler, Director of Digital Partnerships at AEG. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
What does AEG do? And I know might be longer than we have time, but what's the short form of that?
Yeah, we do a lot. The short answer is that AEG is the world's leader in live entertainment and events. So we entertain over 100 million guests a year at 130 plus venues globally. We own arenas, stadiums, own and operate arenas, stadiums, entertainment districts like the O2 in London, LA Live. And then through those facilities, we program a lot of content. So we're the global leader in sports ownership. We own about 8 teams around the world, including teams in Sydney and LA, like the LA Kings.
You own the Kings.
We own the LA Kings. We own the LA Galaxy. Are you a fan of the Kings?
I was there when they won the cup for the very first time. Literally in the stadium, I was there.
That's amazing. So we should have you come back to a game so we can win it again.
Yeah, this year is not a good year.
It's not. We're going to pick it up second half of the season. I'm pretty confident.
You know, I think you should invite me. I should have a talk with Drew Doughty.
Yes.
I always wanted to meet Drew, by the way. It's like I have one of his jerseys. But anyhow, I played hockey when I was young. I still dabble here and there, but anyhow.
I'm in partnerships, so let's work on that. But so there's the sports component. Let me finish this because this is a long-winded answer. Awesome. There's a sports component, but we also own a music entity called AEG Presents, which is really the only competition to Live Nation in terms of promoting music shows, tours, and festivals globally.
You do Coachella, right?
So we manage Coachella with our partners at Golden Voice, Stagecoach. There's about 40 festivals that we do in North America and in Europe. And then we also have a media component to our business, which is Access Television, which you can find on DirecTV, and Access.com, which is a ticketing platform that competes with Ticketmaster StubHub. So really, the entire ecosystem around live events, we are deeply embedded.
So you are in digital partnerships, which in its own tells you that digital has changed the game for you dramatically.
That's right.
Give us a little bit of sort of like tidbits of what's happened with digital that's really made it different.
That's right. Well, so our group, the Global Partnerships Group, is focused on building and maintaining relationships with brand partners around our content and our hardware. So stadium naming rights, but also sponsorship of tours and team sponsors as well. So a lot of those things have manifested historically as physical signage or experiential events. And what we're looking at the future is how do digital technologies create additional opportunities for our brand partners, and how do we leverage what's happening with technology to add value for existing partners, but also bring in new partners that we've never worked with before. And so my job is really harnessing what we're doing to make it as good as possible for those partners, while also creating new opportunities for those partners to come on board.
One of the things that I find fascinating, and it's not true for hockey and soccer as much, but it's true for other U.S. sports, is that there's so much downtime in between, right?
Sure.
And so what do people do when they're downtime? They get on Facebook, and you actually lose them, right?
Right.
What do you do about engaging people in the event that's going on there that really changes what goes on today?
Right. So I mean, we look at ourselves as an experience company, and part of the experience is that downtime. When you're inside one of our facilities, there's a number of things that you can do. And oftentimes in that intermission period, you get up, you go to the bathroom, you get something to eat, you get a drink from the bar, you go find another friend. Really, it's about programming all of that time in addition to the time that's happening on the court or on the ice. So looking at technology, we are looking at this device that people spend a lot of time on in that break and figuring how we can create experiences in there. And we've developed things through the teams that are games enabled through the phone that also engage the entire arena, right?
We're not talking about Kiss Cam right now, right?
It's not the Kiss Cam. That has not been gamified yet, although that's an interesting idea. We'll see how that works out with the married folks. But thinking about things like, the race around the stadium, right? Or the digital shell game that happens on the Jumbotron. How do we engage people in whatever that activity is that's happening on screen or on the floor and get them to participate? It's something we think about. But additionally, as they get up and they go to concession, how do we remove the friction from that experience? And that's something that we think about across all of the programming is how do we make the experience more frictionless, right? Removing the friction so that our guests can have the best time possible without dealing with lines or fumbling for items, wasting time with things that they don't want to see. They came to see the artists, they came to see the athletes.
Maybe this exists today, but I always see, how they have like the thing run around the circle on the Jumbotron.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done this yet, where you assign to different sections each phone that shakes there? The faster they shake it, the faster the horse runs.
Yeah, so we've concepted a couple of these things, and the tech is still delivering. But we talked about, soccer enthusiasts are very active. And if you've been to a match, they'll be engaged for the full 90, right?
Yeah.
And so, can you use some of the gyroscope information in the phone to track activity to then showcase the competition between home teams, superfans, and away team superfans in their fan sections to see who's the rowdiest, right? Those are concepts that we absolutely have looked at. That one never actually got built, but I think that those kinds of experiences we look to build using the phone as an active device. A lot of times people come and they are in their seats and enjoying the experience. So we don't want them to take out and shake their phone too much. Somebody loses it over their head, and then we have a liability. But it's about looking for the right experience. The other part of this is we want things that partners will engage with and fans will engage with. And we have done executions where we've established cameras that are fan-facing to capture that emotionful moment of something happening in the game. But normally you just see what happens in the game on the screen, right? So what's the fan response to that? Capturing that in the moment, that dunk, that score, and then sending a fan their picture of them and their guests in that moment, right? I think that kind of interactivity is things that we've engaged in the past that have been successful.
So I'm curious, one of the things that really changed for you too, I'm sure, is social networks. Mm-hmm. And particularly with live streaming, such as Facebook Live versus the stream that goes on from the broadcast that purchased the airtime. Mm-hmm. What's the competition there? How much of it is competition? How much of it is complementary? And how do you engage between those?
Yeah, I think with every publisher that has content or an event, it's really about how do you maximize eyeballs. And so the challenge these days is you can't make things too exclusive because of all of the different places people can consume and watch content. But at the same time, when you're thinking about a partnership, sometimes the support coming from a partner commands an exclusion. Case in point, Coachella is a wonderful property for us, right? And YouTube is the exclusive live streaming partner of that event, right? We have a very close relationship with the Google folks around the entire event. So what that does for us is it allows us to build up using the bevy of Google's products to deliver an experience to the fan that whether they're there, whether they're not there, they're getting a really immersive experience. We can talk about things that we've done with Google Home and Google HomePod at Coachella that are rounding out that on-site experience, right? The live stream on YouTube is super popular for us. I believe Beyonce broke records last year. So that's something we always look at, but we're constantly evaluating partners. The Kings just did the first digital deal for broadcast rights with, streaming radio with iHeart. So there's no other team in the league, I believe, that is allowing allowing one partner to own the radio broadcast. iHeart does that for us, and it's a step in a different direction away from terrestrial, but that's the thinking, and we're exploring those avenues.
So when I watch a hockey game, having played hockey, I know where the puck is. I follow the puck very easily. For some people, that's not so easy. So we just had the glowing puck going on against the Oilers, which is a really cool idea. I'd almost love to see having players have sensors in their equipment so I know how fast they run, what their heart rate is, and then I can just hold my phone up and kind of like, I can put it over Drew and it knows it's Drew Doughty, and and it shows me, what's going on for him. Are we going to ever see this? How far away are we?
Yeah, I'm not one for timelines. I think we're close. I think we're close to an enhanced experience for fans, particularly at sporting events where information is really at your fingertips in a way it's never been before. Sensors on and in the players, I think, is always a touchy subject because you don't want to mess too much with their feeling in the game, and potentially a sensor someplace, who knows what it does, but get cracked in the head and the sensor comes through. I don't know, but what is, I think, a lot more interesting, at least to me personally, is the idea of volumetric capture in this space, thinking about how we can understand spatial relation and movement through space using digital, using the appropriate camera angles and technology to stitch together digital environments to then allow the computer to understand velocity, altitude,
to use visual sensors instead of physical sensors on players.
Correct. The idea that cameras could pick up a lot of the same information, right? And then the flip side of that is that entire digital experience is now captured and stored someplace. You can start to build information layers on top of it. The cameras can recognize players. So now me as a guest, I can hold up my phone to a Drew Doughty. The phone will recognize it's Drew Doughty and give me options to swipe left for career stats, swipe right for personal stats. So while I'm sitting there with my wife and I'm like, oh, how many career goals does Drew Doughty have? And she's like, oh, who's Drew Doughty's wife, right? Like that. Those are things that, and I'm not saying that all ladies want to do that, but my wife in particular does not like sports. She was always looking for another angle, and that's a way to keep every guest engaged and still have a really unique experience.
So when you talk about the experience, you also, I'm sure, really work a lot with the social feeds and what goes on there. Mm-hmm. You have a great story, like one of your favorite social tweets or posts you've ever seen that really made you laugh? I don't have too many of those. I have those from my previous days when I worked in media. I think there are brands out there that have the best possible people working. The person who runs the Wendy's Twitter is an incredible person. But what I do think is amazing is seeing engagement with our show announcements when they happen. We get a lot of feedback there, and I think even the organic feeds, just that conversation is relevant for research for us to understand really, people's it's not qualitative insight into the event, how people are feeling about it, how people are feeling about lineups. We take early returns from that and make a lot of decisions, in the months. The lineups were released for Coachella a week ago, and we still have 3 months to the event, and we'll do some tweaking, in between now and then to really optimize that experience for all those fans that have already sold out the event. So we talked a lot about the event
Mm-hmm.
and the athletes and the performers. What about the event space itself? Mm-hmm. What do you see today is really changing? What do you do about, to enable some of these experiences? Today I still find when I go to events, my phone, internet connectivity is just really not very good. So what do you do around this, and where do you see it going in terms of event spaces? What do you do there? Where's it going for you? Yeah,
so there's a lot happening in that space with a lot of different, even some of our competitors. What I think is ubiquitous is connectivity. I think the advent of 5G is going to revolutionize the in-arena experience, in-event experience. because connectivity is going to be light years faster than what people experience now. And the idea of downloading content or streaming content will not raise hairs for anyone. It'll just be second nature. When you start to think about what that means, we've delivered experiences. I talked a little bit about Google, so we actually created a Google Home experience that people could activate around Coachella, where you could talk to your assistant and say, talk to Coachella for me. And through that experience, you could get updates on the lineup announcements, but also choose which artists you wanted to see, and set your lineup. And this is all connected through our owned and operated app for the event, right? So you had your preferred lineup, and then there were a lot of other ways that you could engage. FAQs, what to bring, what not to bring, where to stay, all of that enabled through this experience. And I think what is exciting about it is what we've built to date is really impressive, especially around that event. Coachella is really kind of an innovation proving ground for us, for the entire company. The way that RFID wristbands have revolutionized the event-going experience, that's really, when you think about connected things, a hallmark, at least in the music space, because you no longer need to fumble for your wallet. You no longer need to fumble for your ticket, right? Everything that you need is around your wrist, and it means shorter queues, it means customized experience, it means personalized content coming back to you, and offers. In the case of Amex, right? Amex card holders can add their Amex cards and receive perks that only Amex card holders have the ability to receive at an event like that. So what we see happening in the arena space is really about incentivizing loyal fans, but also making the connected experience better for everybody.
So in a way, you are connecting with each one of us in the arena on a one-on-one basis, which you couldn't do before? It's super important for us to try and understand every person in the building, because then we can tailor the experience better, and everybody leaves, whether you're a fan of the home team or the away team, they leave with a better feeling about going to that place.
And it sounds to me like also, instead of it linked to the phone, on long events, you link it to an RFID wristband or something like this that actually identifies you rather than your phone.
That's right. It's worked well for the festival with a wristband. I think, as you think about single game experiences, 2-hour, 3-hour experiences, the phone is really an interesting device where we can create unique IDs and loyalty programs around each consumer coming in, each guest coming in, and start to guide them to their seat. Let them know there's a special on their favorite food. Let them know that there's a deal on the jersey of the player that they love the most. That kind of thing is fans don't realize, but it's going to make everything feel even better than it already does now.
So one of the things that sort of fascinated me when you talked about speed of players and creating this three-dimensional picture of movement in a sports arena and a sports event, what it made me think was, you now can take the same picture actually and show it to someone in virtual reality. Do you see virtual reality competing with your event-based philosophy, or is it actually just becoming an additional channel in a way?
Yeah, I think there's some disagreement on this industry-wide, but there's one group of people that says the premium experience delivered through virtual reality seems to offset the premium experience itself, because now if I can get it here, I don't need to save up for it or experience it there. But the way I feel is that there's no substitute for the live experience. And what we're investigating is, can we deliver a virtual experience that is unique to the live experience? We know that the live experience is unique. Can we deliver something completely different that still incentivizes you to visit the VR space, but not steal away from the live experience? On the music side of the business, we ran a pilot with Facebook and Oculus to do venues. So we did a series of concerts through the platform. And if you had Oculus, you could see our artists performing those shows. Facebook brought their team down, shot it specifically for the platform, and it was a great experience, and it was something that, you know, there were elements to it that you couldn't even get if you were at the show. So there was one Portugal the Man show where I actually went, and I was watching the show, snuck to see the VR experience, and it's a different experience. And I know that, you know, the NBA has been testing what courtside seats look like through that experience, and I, you know, as a fan of basketball, I love sitting courtside. I've done it one time. There is no virtual experience that will ever take the place of that. There's nothing like being there live.
I sat one time courtside also.
Yeah.
I literally was 10 seats down from Kobe Bryant.
Nice.
And I never forget this. My son was standing there at warm-up, and I was taking a picture of him. And I just was focusing on him. He was like about this high. And suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm cutting someone off. And there was a full-on basketball player standing behind him, putting his hand on his shoulder. It was really fascinating.
That's great.
It's a one-time thing. You can never
Yeah.
kind of like replace that.
Yeah.
So you have access, our show is about coming to an end, and you have access to any entertainment you'd like. I mean, you know, you get the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you and your wife go when you want to really
Woo!
have an experience?
My wife is a huge Taylor Swift fan, so that works well because she's an artist that we have a very great relationship with. But I think, you know, the thing we focus on is our kids more than anything. So that's, I don't know, is that a letdown answer for the Internet of Things conversation?
No, any answer.
Can I enable my kids? Can I connect my kids so that I can track them at all times? I think that's coming. You know, we actually, the thing I love is that kids' experiences now are becoming really connected too. So there's a lot of parks and museums that we go to that are playing with digital technology, but in the young education space, early education space, the idea that you can leverage screens and interactivity to entice the kids to come and interact, but then also teach a lesson through that, I think is super interesting. But we went to a Bruno Mars concert at Staples Center a couple months back. I'm a huge Laker fan, and she does not care about basketball, so it's a little challenging. We usually focus on like female pop stars or music acts. That's pretty much where we intersect.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, our coffee chat is coming to an end. Matt,
Great to
thank you
meet
so
you.
much for being on the show. It was great having you and talking about athletes, arenas, and events.
Yeah.
And I hope I get to see you at Coachella sometime.
Thanks for having me. We'll have to figure out how to get you down there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you missed any part of today's show, please come to my YouTube channel. You can see today's show or any past shows. And with that, I'm going to say have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.